The two comments that expose the real cause of suffering. Somewhere beneath a video about childhood trauma, two comments sit side by side like witnesses in a courtroom. The first comment declares with absolute confidence, if every child had a childhood without trauma, the world would be completely different. The second comment quietly replies from another direction, having everything you ever wanted and still feeling empty inside is a very dangerous place to be. Two comments, two explanations for the same human condition. And without realizing it, the crowd has stumbled into one of the oldest philosophical puzzles in history. Because if suffering can exist both with trauma and without trauma, then trauma cannot be the whole cause. Something deeper must be operating. Imagine two houses standing on opposite sides of a street. The first house has broken windows, leaking pipes, and a cracked foundation. Everyone agrees the damage came from the storms that battered it when it was first built. The second house looks perfect from the outside. Fresh paint, perfect lawn, strong walls. But inside the living room sits a man staring into space, wondering why none of it makes him happy. Two houses, two different histories. Yet somehow the same quiet suffering lives inside both of them. This is where the conversation about trauma often stops. People point to the first house and say, "See, that's the problem." But the second house refuses to disappear. It stands there quietly disrupting the explanation. Because if suffering were simply the result of bad conditions, then good conditions should cure it. But they don't. History is full of people who escaped terrible childhoods and built meaningful lives. And history is also full of people who had every advantage imaginable and still collapsed under the weight of something they couldn't explain. So what exactly is going on? Imagine a fisherman standing beside a lake. He throws a hook into the water and waits patiently. The fish believes the struggle is about the bait. The fish believes the problem is the shiny object that caught its attention. But the real trap was never the bait. The real trap was the hook beneath it. Human beings often look at suffering the same way. We point to the bait, the childhood, the poverty, the heartbreak, the success that somehow still feels empty. But those things may not be the hook. They may only be the bait. The deeper cause of suffering may not be the events themselves, but the meaning the mind attaches to them. One person experiences hardship and becomes resilient. Another experiences comfort and becomes restless. The circumstances differ, but the mind interpreting those circumstances is the same mysterious instrument in both cases. Like a projector casting images onto a screen, the mind keeps producing stories about what life means and what it should feel like. Sometimes those stories are about pain that came from the past. Sometimes they are about emptiness that appears even when the present looks perfect. But both stories are still stories trying to explain a feeling that refuses to disappear. This is why the two comments sitting beneath that video are so important. They reveal that people are searching for the cause of suffering in opposite directions. One group looks backward, the other group looks inward. And when both explanations appear at the same time, the question becomes unavoidable. If suffering can exist in broken lives and successful lives, if it can appear in the past and in the present, if it can survive both trauma and comfort, then perhaps the real cause of suffering is not simply what happens to us. Perhaps the real cause lies in how the mind experiences itself. That possibility is unsettling, because it means the answer may not be found in rewriting history or perfecting circumstances. It may require something far stranger. Looking directly at the one place most people rarely investigate. The mind that keeps trying to explain the pain. And somewhere in the endless argument between trauma and emptiness, between the broken house and the perfect house, a quiet possibility begins to emerge. What if suffering is not only a story about what happened to us, but a story about how we learn to see ourselves?